Stunning new reporting involving President Trump and his team pulling off a, quote, deception operation to avoid a, quote, credible threat on the president's life. This threat came from Iran. It was while he was in Turkey. We all remember the plane switch that happened around this time. But now the Washington Post is reporting that on July 8th, in full view of the cameras, the president boarded the plane for a flight departing Turkey. But he was then secretly whisked off that plane into a catering truck, according to their reporting, that transported him to a waiting military plane. And these are images of the truck that day. That is based on the Washington Post reporting. So with that, we bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, former vice chief of staff of the Army, and now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General, always good to have you with us. Your reaction to this plot and to the means that were used to deflect it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I regret that we're even talking about it. And we're only talking about it, obviously, because people in the know, government officials, are willing to talk to the media and give them this information. And that's really unfortunate. But listen, obviously, we believe this is the Iranian threat. And they have, in the past, we have detected their plans. And fortunately, we've been able to disrupt those plans, not just against president or presidents, but against Saudi ambassador, once other government officials here. That's the work of our counterintelligence agencies in doing that. And they're really quite excellent, led here by certainly the FBI themselves. But this threat looks like it was obviously against the airplane. And what would that look like? Well, first of all, the fact that the president is coming out of Turkey. Obviously, Turkey is a European country, but also a Middle East country. Borders right there on the precipice of the Middle East. And the Iranians likely believe they had better access, as a result of all of that. So what would be the means? It could be a missile, ground-to-air missile, shoulder-fired, or actually something else delivered, but more likely shoulder-fired. It's easier to conceal it. A drone, or actually another airplane, a suicide airplane. But for our viewers to understand here, the president's airplane flies in an air defense bubble the entire time. And that aircraft is absolutely protected wherever that bubble is. But if they had a credible threat and a plan, they're not going to take the chance to wait on that air defense bubble. And they did, obviously, the intelligent thing and move the president off the plane itself.
Yeah, but
that plane obviously still flew in that air defense bubble and was protected.
Yes, understood.
But they likely disrupted this plan,
which is obviously a big plus. And here's what Jake Tapper said about this, because it does raise this obvious question. Obviously, the life of the president is paramount, and previous White Houses have used deception to protect the president's life. But no officials I've spoken to have ever heard of using Air Force One full of White House staff and journalists as a decoy during an imminent threat. What's your reaction to the fact that the White House staff and the reporters were still on the plane that took off?
Well, we don't know that threat was still as active as it looks like. I think it may have been precautionary in a sense, in terms of disrupting the threat, like I indicated. I don't think that was the purpose of it. What they needed to do, they wanted to get the president out of there. Just like we would move a president out of a building quickly, we would take a president off a route if we knew it was going to be interfered with, it was going to be a bomb or something out there. We're going to move the president away from the threat. And that's what they did, and that was the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, it's very unnerving. I mean, obviously, this president has seen more threats against his life than, I believe, any other president. And you said something to me when we spoke the other day, that as we get closer to the midterms, Iran will become more violent because they understand the pressure of the midterms, the political pressure that the president and his party face right now, and they're working it to their advantage.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons the Iranians believe they have the upper hand here. I mean, obviously, they still have influence over the Straits of Hormuz, and that they acquired that on April the 7th when we went to a ceasefire. And we're 4 months into it, and we're still trying to work out some kind of a deal here where the straits are truly open to freedom of navigation and no interference whatsoever. It remains to be seen if that will ever be achieved peacefully, but that is the intent. But as we move closer, despite the success of the economic blockade, I've always felt that the people running the country don't care that much about their own people suffering here. What they really care about is staying in power and the influence they believe they have over this administration moving towards the midterms. I'm convinced, listen, just in the last few weeks, they've conducted 22 attacks. Yeah. And as we get closer, I think we run the risk of the frequency may increase, but also the purpose of the attack and the violence of the attack may also. And the reason for that is clearly in their minds, they think the closer they get to the midterm elections in terms of their actions, the less likelihood the president to respond militarily against them. Now, listen, you would think by now that all this time that this regime has been dealing with our president, that they would learn a little bit from their miscalculation that they've done in the past, and it's been quite considerable. He has all the cards here. I believe the best card to play is a combination of all the economic levers that we're using. The blockade, what Secretary Besson is doing with sanctions and other things he's doing is quite remarkable, and also military power. And I do think change takes place as a result of that.
Thank you, General. Always great to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Great talking to you, Martha.
You as well, sir. General.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.